was last night's the Actors Guild Awards?
Yeah. Very dumb new name.
Wait, what did they call it? They changed the name?
They just called it the Actor Awards.
Oh, right. Yeah. I did see a clip. This is gonna be my segue to say I've been watching a lot of The Pit. I'm a big fan of The Pit. And it was weird. So they won Best Ensemble Award. And I did see the clip that was like, and the actor goes to The Pit. And a whole bunch of people got on stage. And I was like, huh? That's what that's how the award is titled? Okay. Award season always brings up so much. I feel like some of the worst uh industry film and television takes happen during award season
Yeah, and like just the other day, like a massive discourse situation happened.
because of the BAFTAs.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
BAFTAs created a discourse final boss.
I should say for all of our listeners, we are recording this very start of March 2026, and we will be releasing within like 2 weeks, which is probably the quickest turnaround we've ever had on an Skipping Camp episode. Usually we are many months behind when things get released in terms of discussing stuff, and that's not true this time.
Also, maybe like one of her biggest gaps between recording
Yeah.
because everything happened to me.
Uh, just to you, stealing the spotlight. No, no. I mean, I've been ridiculously busy. I had two different plays. One play I did a scenic design, which was like props and set and a whole bunch of stuff. And then I also just finished being props master for a play. And I'm going to be acting in a play that just rehearsals haven't started, but we had a read through that's coming, and our performances are going to be in May. And I always have like 3 or 4 different freelance jobs I'm juggling. So, what's the big thing that happened to you, Fabiola, that if you want to share?
So basically, the impossible happened, which is the CAD distribution system struck us. Something that I never thought would happen because my mom was like, there will, like, no, we're not having a cat. A cat is not going to be in the house. And guess what?
You have a cat now.
Yes. And she is kind of a part of the reason behind the delays.
She takes a lot of I mean a new pet takes a lot of attention, especially a new pet that it seemed like there was a lot of questions about like what was going on with her health, who if she belonged to anyone. It was during what you said, right? That you Puerto Rico has the longest Christmas season, so like nothing was
Yeah.
open.
Yeah. But yeah, anyways, now we're here.
And now we're here, and we have a wonderful guest joining us this episode. Anya, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. Again, I'm Anya. We talked about Divinity last time, which is a movie I did
Yes.
not like.
And I wasn't there for it.
Yes.
I missed it.
Yeah, I missed you that one on that one. But now you get to talk with me about a movie that I hate. I'm just kidding. Um, no, it's okay. But I mean, I liked it enough to like have programmed it into our Grand Illusions Kung Fu Clubhouse series, and yeah, it did pretty good.
And Fabiola, you were the one who pitched this movie. What are we discussing today?
Today we're talking about Riki-Oh, the story of Riki from 1991.
Which I remember I saw that on the list and I was like, I remember that was programmed at Grand Illusion. I wonder if Anya would like to join us for that.
Yep.
Can I say up top, I think this might be the most violent and gory movie we have covered so far on the pod.
Good. Setting a
But it's
precedent.
also like violent in such a very specific way that I don't think any other film is like.
Yeah.
Hmm.
The thing is, I'm also glad. I was like, I want a guest to join us for this pod because I really don't watch like any kind of martial arts movies. It's interesting because I'm also like, oh, okay, this is an adaptation, right? This is like an ad is this it's an adaptation of a
Yeah.
manga.
Yeah.
Um, it was in, funny enough, at Scarecrow, it is in the animation section, even though it is live action, because they have specifically a section for live action adaptations of manga. I can understand why it would be like described as maybe like a comic book movie. I mean, I'm assuming again, I don't know anything about the source material, but like the kind of violence in this movie is very cartoonish. Like, it's like kind of like if Bugs Bunny designed saw traps. Like, it feels like really like all of everything that happens and all the deaths are so. There's so much torture, but it's so like absurd.
And even then, like situations where you're pretty sure like there's no way that this guy could still be alive. Quite a few times, like the guy is still alive.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, that's exactly it. This is like gore forward Tex Avery core.
Yeah.
And honestly, like I could see like the new Looney Tunes like writing team actually probably doing a riff on something like this and doing a really good job at it. My recommendation towards that is just to look up there's a Looney Tunes YouTube short that was like made for vertical video. That sounds awful, but it's called Whole Lot of Trouble. It's just like a Bugs Bunny Elmer Fudd short. It's like a minute and a half long, and it's like so hyper violent. It made me think of like Itchy and Scratchy from The Simpsons, and like
Mm-hmm.
that's the same kind of vein, to be honest. But it's something that like I guess kids are fine with seeing nowadays. If I saw that as a kid, that would have been my entire personality.
I feel like we should probably give a bit of a plot summary. We tend to do that before we kind of get into talking production specifics. Either of you be interested in sharing that? Anya, would you want to share the a
Sure.
general plot summary?
Yeah. Riki-Oh, the story of Ricky is the story of Ricky, a 21-year-old boy, man, who is brought into prison because he enacted revenge on a gang of people who killed his girlfriend or led to his girlfriend's death. Basically, is just fighting against this corrupt, privatized prison system by working his way up through what the movie calls the Gang of Four, which is just like it's an internalized gang that kind of just like runs the prison on the inside. And he's just like exposing corruption here and there, basically just like fighting slash killing anyone who opposes him. And that's really it. Like there's the beginning of a plot, but it doesn't actually like get much more fleshed out from there. The rest of the movie is just ultra violence, martial arts, and prison exploitation with like some soap opera style acting in between.
Yeah. The motivation, how exactly like Ricky ended up getting this manslaughter charge to throw him in prison, it's like revealed in flashbacks. Like every time he's kind of like at his lowest, it'll like flash back to what happened.
And then it's still not even that clear.
Yeah.
I guess like he just attacked a mob boss who shot him 5 times, which is important, except it's not. And
Yeah.
then that's it.
Well, and the movie ends with him having made his way all the way to the top, killed
Hmm.
everyone, punches a giant hole in the wall, and walks out of the prison. And that's the end of the
Yeah,
film.
he leaves the film.
There's like almost like a video game aspect to that too, right? It's like all these
Yeah, I
different
was gonna
levels.
say, like, this, like, even though it's not based on a video game, it does feel like one of the few successful video game movies in the sense of like how it's formatted. Like the four gangs are arguably like mini bosses,
Hmm.
and then there's the warden who's like the final boss.
Yeah.
Like the entire film operates like a video game. It's like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. And Riki-Oh looks just like Ryu from like Street Fighter with a little bit of Ken energy, just kind of like mixed into one person. I'm certain that like the original manga came out before Street Fighter or maybe around the same time. I want to say it was like in the 80s or something like that. I'm not a big manga nerd at all, so if I'm wrong, whatever, I don't care.
Fabiola, I know you did a little bit of research for this. Did anything you read say anything about the adaptation process? Okay, if not, but
So basically, like what I like from the sources that I read, it's mainly like if there's any sort of background information, it's more about the context in which the film was made
mm,
rather than like how it works adaptationally from the manga.
yeah. Well, then, I mean, that's just not the frame. Someone else could go make their podcast episode about using that as their frame of reference, but we're here to talk about camp, so we're talking about the movie itself, not necessarily it as an adaptation. What is the context the film was made in, though? I wonder if that would, like, again, I'm like, feel like I'm so, the thing I can't kind of get over is just like how ultra violent this film is. Not that it's this bad thing, but like I'm curious if either of you know kind of the context of like what other movies were being made. Like also who is the director? I did not pay close enough attention to that.
The director is Lam Nai Choi, and this information is from Turner Classic Movies, an article by David Cullett from 2012.
Oh wow.
But yeah, and it says in the late 1980s and early 1990s, the Hong Kong film industry was enjoying one of the most robust boom periods of its history. A handful of breakout stars were leading the wave: Jackie Chan, John Woo, Sui Hark, as the island cranked out an astonishingly prodigious volume of movies, far in excess of what could be needed to satisfy the appetites of the country's own admittedly movie mad population. With the handover to China looming at the end of the 90s and a history of British rule winding down, Hong Kong cinema was naturally predisposed for an international theme. All movie prints came ready made with Chinese and English subtitles offered as a matter of course, which opened up foreign distribution opportunities. That being said, the growing popularity of Hong Kong imports in America and in the West generally in the early 90s did not mean these films ended up at the local blockbuster. Instead, they arrived as VHS cassettes stacked high in specialty stores, buried deep in various Chinatowns and other Asian enclaves. Fans were not likely to stumble across Hong Kong movies casually, they had to be sought out. Arriving in a specialty outlet that offered Hong Kong videos could be a daunting exercise for the unprepared.
I feel like I read or like saw, I've seen on Letterboxd and stuff that like this is considered a cult classic now.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Is it just one of those films that over time enough people saw it, enough people talked about it that it got its
yeah,
recognition?
yeah,
One thing that like made it so notorious was the early days of YouTube. Clips of this movie were shared like all over the internet, and
Oh.
back then like there wasn't any way to like reverse search and like try to figure out what it is. Sometimes most people who were like sharing clips or gifs of like the movie, like some of the ridiculous kills, like Riki-Oh like punching the top of a guy's head off,
Yeah.
or like uppercutting through someone else's jaw. Like they didn't know what movie it came from. It was just like something that you shared on the internet, and like people were just clamoring to find out like what this movie is. Like where does this come from? Is this a movie? Is this a TV show? Is this something that like someone just made and like this is all there is? It was like a very short-lived mystery, but it being sort of like readily available in pieces like that made everyone just kind of be on a higher alert to look out for it. Um,
Mm.
it being released as like a category 3 film through Hong Kong, which is like their version of like NC-17 hard
Mm.
R stuff, also like made it generally pretty desirable. And like there's quite a few category 3 Hong Kong films out there, but I would say like by far this is probably one of the more notorious ones, and the one that like I think even people who haven't even seen the movie could possibly name out of like all of them. Like I looked through a list of other category 3 films, and honestly I had only really seen like a small handful of them, and some of them are only just category 3 because of like sexual content. uh,
Not violence.
yeah, but like any mix of the two can get you that, or could get you that. I don't know if they use the category system anymore, but it being shared pretty like freely through just like images, like image boards like 4chan. That's kind of how it blew up. YouTube shares, other like internet forums for like hyper niche places that just don't exist anymore. That was probably like the big boost towards like cult status that it got. And once it was finally like readily available in like a more accessible format in the US and like other countries on like more official releases, that's kind of when like people started actually discovering or like rediscovering it.
I literally watched it on the Criterion channel.
Yeah.
That's so good. Um, that brings up a question for me. So when this film was released, there is like the original Cantonese language track with English subtitles, like was mentioned earlier, like a combination of like Mandarin slash Cantonese subtitles with a hybridized like English subtitle for the original language track. Golden Harvest, who put the movie out, also relegated like a US American dub of the film
That's what I watched.
for distribution. Okay, that would be my question: is if both of you guys watched the English dub?
I watched it subtitled, like with
Okay,
English subtitles. But I do think it's fun that like we each have watched a version of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember you saying that you were like, "Oh, Anya, you were like, I'll see if I can watch both."
I was not able to watch both, but
Have you seen both different versions before?
yes, I've seen the dubbed version the most. But today earlier, I rewatched it with the Cantonese track with the subtitles. And I will say that there's a fairly big difference in terms of like like how the tone feels um,
Mm,
in Cantonese versus English dub. The English dub is very like humor forward.
yeah.
Like like everyone knows that like we need to push it at this angle versus we can have some like little jabs here and there, like in the dialogue, and but like we want to keep it relatively we want to keep it serious to a certain degree and let the hyper-violence speak for itself, which that's one pretty valid approach. Although a lot of people do prefer the English dub. I think I might be among those people.
I think that's such an interesting point to bring up because, well, this reminds me, I just saw recently, it might have been because you've reposted it from the It's Giving Camp account, Fabiola, but I might have just seen someone else post a John Waters quote on Instagram that was basically him talking about how like everything is ironic now. Like things in the
Oh yeah.
past used like it could just be violence for violence sake, like sex for sex sake, and now everything has to be like ironic and like oh it's so bad it's good instead of just like why can't it just be good, which I feel like is such a I mean that's such that is the essence of camp. I think that's the thing that we're constantly trying to dig at where it's like no, just take it at the face value, find the meaning from it. Like don't like yeah, sometimes you're like yeah, this is so funny, this is bad, but being like no, I'm saying that this is good and this is valuable as is without this like layer of like removal from it. So I think that's really interesting if like the original like Cantonese track like is less is like if it's taking itself seriously versus if the American English dub is more like no this is so silly isn't it. I mean
Yeah,
maybe you're not saying it's that exact difference but
it takes itself a little more seriously, but
Yeah.
not like Oscar bait seriously.
yeah.
Yeah, like the movie still does have its like specific tone, but I from like the original Cantonese, I do appreciate how it's still it believes in the story regardless of how silly it is.
Well, and I think it's also really interesting. We haven't quite gotten to like what I feel like is the central theme and the thing that I find most interesting, especially like discussing this from a camp perspective, where you're like, okay, let's take the movie as it is. What is it saying? What are the themes? Which is like, it feels like about this like corrupt prison system and like prison abolitionism, which I think is really interesting to have like like reading that from a current like American perspective, whether intentionally meant to be explored in the film or not. And it's like also so violent and so like and is really comedic in its violence while also having at the same time like to me a really compelling theme. I don't know what if you guys have
Mm.
thoughts on like whether this movie's trying to say anything or not.
I think it has things it wants to say, but it also seems to be kind of beholden to its source material.
Mm.
That being said, the one like movie that this makes me think of tonally and also just how it uses satire is Paul Verhoeven's RoboCop, because
Okay, I
there's
was
the
thinking the
ultra-violence.
same thing.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
RoboCop does it way better, but like this has like kind of the same attitude. Like it has the same targets. It just comes at it in a different way, and it might not be as successful in like trying to convey something towards like what a potential solution is, if it even is concerned with that. And like I don't think it is.
Yeah.
Um, it seems a little bit more like infatuated with the spectacle that it's providing and not exactly like trying to like pull the wool off from everyone's eyes and just you like I don't know like clocking in with your coworker after a weekend on Monday morning, someone asking you how everything's going, and then just hearing them say living the dream. That's this is kind of semi-defeatist in a way.
Mm.
But I mean, that being said, like it's still in the conversation with satirism like that. I mean, just look at like the assistant warden character. It's no accident that like this guy is modeled to look exactly like Kim Jong-il, and he's got a hook for a hand and like a glass eye. That ticks off like four of the five like comic book villain boxes, if not every single one of them.
He keeps mints in the glass eye.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was crazy.
like the first time I saw this movie, I thought like, oh, they're like little poison pills that you're gonna like distribute to like the prisoners that make too much of a stink about like the opium den that you, not opium den, like the poppy fields
Yeah.
that you're growing and like selling out of the prison, which is like not a good idea logistically, but still like no, they're just breath mints. And that's just really funny to me.
In regards to like the satire angle and Verhoeven, one of the things that I've found interesting in like my other source, which is an article from Hyperreal Film Club, is that they point out that Riki-Oh might be intended to be a Chinese response to America's cultural hegemony with its own modernized version of Chinese muscular hypermasculinity in 1991. The American version of this type of hero usually involves a man who derives his virtue from rugged individualist morality, while Ricky derives his virtue from popular collectivist traditionalism.
Hmm.
And like in a way, it does like Ricky as a protagonist feels like a classic American action hero, but within the context of kind of collective anti prison kind of sentiment.
That is true. That this is distinctly like Ricky is not a character who is like I am doing this for myself. I'm hell bent. Like he does have this revenge angle.
But he also consistently helps the other
Yeah.
inmates.
Mhm.
And is like even the one of the what was the like gang of four like I think it's what's was his name? Like
It's Tarzan.
oh yeah, Tarzan. Because like they were supposed to fight to the death, and then it's like, oh, he killed him, and then there was the ceiling that was being crushed down, and it's like, oh, Tarzan's still alive, and Ricky tries to like get him out of there and tries to help him and sympathizes with him, which is it seems I did notice that it seemed that every single time that like Ricky made a like connection with someone, they died. But it was like that the system of the prison of the warden, the assistant warden, these other gang leaders were like trying to kill and trying to keep that kind of like community from forming.
I will say that Ricky's attitude towards like the people that he fights, as like brutal as he is towards them, there is a level of respect and admiration for that other person, with the understanding that they're just being used as a tool against him and aren't acting like independently against him, being like pointing at him saying, I hate you on a personal level, you must die, which is something that is fairly common across a lot of martial arts films. So this is more than likely just like an echo of that in terms of like an exploitative trope of like martial arts revenge films where there's always someone better than you. You're looking for a challenge, and like when you're in a fight with someone, it might seem like the emotions are are heavy because like your attacks are like you're not pulling any punches, you're not holding anything back, but there's no actual like hate or animosity behind it. But the dichotomy here is that the prison warden system is this literal personification of like hatred and animosity that's
Mm.
the driving force between like these would be mercenaries, I guess, like within like the prison hierarchy. The reification of this trope of like mutual respect that Ricky or Riki-Oh or Rick, I guess, enacts is even just by like not changing that makes it all the more like pure and a slap in the face of like this industrialized system that is being constructed or at this point has been constructed to um like literally demonize him. He's
Yeah.
even called a demon in the movie, at least in the Cantonese version.
Oh, in the American dub, he's also called a demon.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I don't think that's a mistake either. Like, not a mistake, but like, I think there's a double
Yeah.
meaning there. And
Well, it's
that,
partly because he's literally unkillable.
yeah, I mean, that's like, there's so many movies like that where it's like not exactly like super unique that like this guy can just punch a hole through a wall and then just run through it as if, he doesn't need physical therapy for the next 12 years.
And he was buried alive for a week.
Yeah.
He has 5 bullets in his chest.
Why didn't you let the doctors take the 5 bullets out of you? Souvenirs.
I want to talk more about some of the specific, like, more, some of the martial arts stuff, but I wanted to say, because I feel like I don't think we've like said this explicitly yet. It's present like the very start of the movie kind of has this like this is a futuristic setting, but it says
It's
2001,
2001.
which
Yeah,
is
which is only like
10
It
10
was
years.
the
years into the
future of
future.
19.
And
Yeah.
what they say is basically a reality for definitely in America. I don't know if this was also the case in like Hong Kong and China, but it's like all prisons are franchises. Like all government organizations have been privatized. Like this system has made it's just there for profit. And like they also are like they talk. I don't know if this was just in the English dub, but there's like a line or two that's like, oh, like the prisoners like are great for our labor, and like again we like mentioned like the poppies that they're growing for opium, like presumably to like have this recursive loop of they're gonna be making drugs in the prison to then sell outside the prison to then which will just in turn bring people back into the prison system.
I mean,
Like,
that's part of like the revenge story aspect of it.
Yeah.
Because like Ricky, it was his girlfriend, right? It's like kind of vague what the relationship
Yeah.
is.
I assumed it was
Like,
girlfriend, but
yeah,
the
the girl that Ricky knew, she saw like these gang members like doing drugs, and like that's what led her to her death.
it's so
Yeah.
crazy.
I love that scene because, like, all right, when she leaves the school, I think it's a school,
Yeah.
like there's this group of kids just like very obviously doing drugs very badly, and they're like they're just on the fucking campus, like they're just behind some bushes on the walkway,
Like
as if
straight
like
up
they're hidden.
shooting like black tar heroin. It's like
Yeah, literally. Out of like the cheapest tinfoil like a rectangle ever. And then she runs straight back into the building, goes up to the very top floor. Doesn't even like there's no resistance at all. Like they chase her, obviously, but she just goes straight out the window for is it the window or like the
it's
rooftop?
the
One of
It's
those.
a
rooftop.
rooftop. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Well,
she
they
just
like
fucking jumps off
yeah, the
and
guys are like, "Oh, should we do something about her?" Like I was like they seemed like maybe they like knocked her out and like were like, "Oh, we need to like figure out what to do with her." And then she wakes up and is
yeah,
like, "No,
Yeah.
I'm just going to kill myself right now because
yeah.
like the seeing of heroin is so traumatic." Like so it's not like they don't
And
even kill her. Literally.
my favorite part is how the like dummy that they throw, the shoe falls off. I love when the
It
shoe
doesn't even
just
cut
falls
away.
off.
It just like the camera lingers. It's like a slow take almost where yeah, she just falls and then you see the entire arc of this dummy's fall and it it just hits the sidewalk and you hear that sound effect. And then like the very next scene is like when Riki-Oh has to come in and like identify the body at the morgue and he just stares at her. And then he just like runs away immediately. And that's the scene. Like it's maybe
Yeah.
a minute long. There's no dialogue. I think if anyone has any doubts as to how like dead serious this movie is supposed to be taking itself, or if this is like something made on purpose to be like campy, I think this would just this one sequence would answer your question. It knows how cheesy it is, but it kind of has fun with that fact. Although I guess you could see somehow that it's not exactly aware of like how to translate some of the drama of like the heavier stuff of why Ricky is so upset and angry, or like why he's even motivated to use his martial arts training to get back at just the general idea of people who like killed his girlfriend or led his girlfriend to commit suicide.
Yeah.
The fact that it's so unclear is it loses itself and then it becomes like unintentional camp again.
Yeah. The backstory stuff isn't even like the charm of the film. The charm is like everything that's happening in the prison.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we talked about how fake that dummy looks. Like, that kind of thing is like funny, but then all of the like special effects, which to me, like, clearly look like, like latex and styrofoam and, that I find so incredibly charming. Like, I really find, like, just it's like we said I've been saying it's really gory and violent, but it's just so like putty, like there's like it's very like I mean in the end the final like the warden like transforms into this like beast and to like have the final battle and I'm like that's like a latex suit, like that looks so fake but it's so like because the face is all contorted and it's like so I don't know, it's just like so out there in a way that is really fun.
Yeah, like definitely one of the things that like I found like so compelling and unique about the violence is like how it very clearly looks fake and yet it's also very visceral.
Yes.
Like, and I don't think I've
Mhm.
ever seen that in any other film. Like for something so fake looking to be just like genuinely also affecting.
Yeah. Most of the heavy lifting there is honestly the Foley sound effects for like the impact,
Mm,
which is another like kind of invisible art form in martial arts movies. Like traditionally, the sound effects for punches and kicks are like a meat cleaver going through like a head of cabbage. Sometimes it's like butcher meat, sometimes on like low budget ones. This one's my favorite. It's literally just someone blowing into a microphone.
yeah.
Um, which, you know, it, it can be amusing, but like when you're watching a 90-minute like martial arts film and you're hearing that like every other minute during a fight, it can get kind of tiresome. But I will say by far, Riki-Oh has like the best martial arts Foley work that like it deserves some kind of like not posthumous, but retroactive recognition. And like while I'm not like super in favor of like awards for that kind of thing or just in general, I still think that like that kind of work should be a little bit more recognized and honored, because that's what makes moments like someone's like face falling into a board full of nails that was just all of a sudden there so like impactful rather
Yeah.
than just ridiculous and hilarious, which it's both of those things, but more surprising than anything.
It's such a good point to say that is an invisible thing because as someone who has done Foley work before, who does think about sound often, I wasn't thinking about the sound, which as you're describing, I was like, oh, that's like of the few like martial arts films I've seen, there's been some bad Foley, and I like notice it. This movie, I honestly like wasn't thinking about the sound, and I think that that shows that it was really effective because it like it becomes the environment, it becomes the texture, and
Hmm.
it just makes it, yeah, feel very visceral. I will say I did note there was one sound effect that I found funny that I noticed, which was when tor towards the beginning when Ricky got a nail stuck in his hand and
Yep.
he pulls it out and it like
Yeah.
squeaks like
Which I is like definitely one of the like key cartoon moments in
Yeah,
this film. And like
that goes back to the Bugs Bunny thing.
it also like indicates that like the filmmakers know that
mm,
like this is not entirely serious. We're having fun.
Yeah.
yeah. So what is, I didn't write it down because I didn't know the spelling. Is the martial arts practice that Ricky like knows, is that an actual like, is that a real like specific practice, or was it something that was kind of like made
Mm,
up for the movie?
that I don't know too much about. Honestly, like he doesn't really fight in any consistent form like for the movie proper. Even during his like training montage, which isn't even a montage, it's just like a scene of him going up to his uncle in a graveyard and saying like, "I want to be strong," and then the very next scene is him just throwing gravestones at him. Um, but like he does do some form like to show him like what he can do, but like I think that's a form that's like that has been discarded in favor of whatever amalgamated style he's being taught, which like the only thing I could place for certain is Qigong. Like when Rikio's back in his cell and like he feels like chest pain from like the bullets that are still inside of him, he does do like some breathing exercises, and like that is pretty much like 100% qigong. But that's more of just like breathing regulation and pain minimization rather than like an outward like defensive or offensive fighting form.
Hmm.
Everything else is just kind of like action movie um, style martial arts.
Yeah.
Like there's maybe like some volleys here and there that look vaguely like some form of like boxing. Honestly, like none of the styles that were used really just kind of like stand out as any one specific thing. And I'm not sure if that was a deliberate choice or if maybe the choreography was just not meant to be so nuanced. Because the fights honestly don't last very long because Ricky is such like a weird superhuman force of nature that
Yeah.
like having those extended fights just wouldn't really make sense. Um, since he can just like punch through your chest cavity and then
Yeah.
it's over.
Yeah, it's not really about how he's throwing the punches. It's about the
Yeah.
fact that when he throws a punch, you're gone, you're dead. Like
Yeah, like there's no duel really. Like even when what's his name like says I'm gonna duel you now, and then like the whole like room just starts getting flooded with concrete, like wet concrete.
yeah.
That's like the movie's Deus Ex Machina saying like, no, we don't do duels in this movie. But you're just gonna get like fucking killed right away or just completely incapacitated by environmental conditions or something else that like the character themselves wouldn't have seen coming. And I
Yeah.
don't think anyone would have seen that coming. Uh,
Yeah.
There's like various gadgets across the film. There's like trapdoors.
Yeah.
There's like this ceiling when like they're in the cage and like the ceiling is like
yeah,
dropping down to crush them.
the jigsaw coated saw trap where
They have
yeah,
like a bunch of poles like stuck through him or something. Or
yeah,
maybe that he's just like in a bunch of like holes. That to
Yeah.
me is the most visceral moment where I think it's Rogan or Roland. I can't remember the guy's what his name is, but one of the one of the leader guys, and he shoves a bunch of razor blades in
oh,
Ricky's
that
mouth,
part.
tapes him shut, punches him a bunch. So then
Hmm.
the razor blades are sticking out of his cheeks, and then the warden walks up, takes the tape off, and Ricky spits the remaining blades and blood in his face. I was like, well, that was the moment I was like,
Yeah,
oh, holy shit.
honestly, I don't know what the warden expected when he took the tape off. Like, what do you think he's gonna try to do? Um, but no, that's probably the most saw-coated trap right there. And I think he was just held in place by like just a bunch of rebar that looked like it
Yeah.
was connected to what would be like one of those like spinny thingies on the playground, but
Yeah.
just like cemented or bolted down so it wouldn't move. And then he's like fine the next scene.
He's always fine. There's
He's
also the
always
moment
fine.
where that same guy, I wrote down both Roland and Rogan, so I don't. So, I need to figure out what the guy's name
The,
actual name
I
is.
think those were both of the twinks. Like the
Yeah,
one with the blonde bangs that like curved around and he had like the knives on ropes thing,
yeah,
and the other guy who's just more in like the all black.
yeah.
Um,
Well, the twink who's in all black with like the silver accents, he like when he walks up, the voiceover there was like a voiceover in the English dub that's like Rogan's kung fu is unorthodox, and he like hits
yeah,
him,
that's him.
and he's like, I've hit your dead spot. Soon you'll be dead. And then Ricky's just like able to resist it. He's just like,
Yeah, he
I
just
can be
does qigong and
stronger
he's like,
than death.
I'm good.
I was also like, was like, okay, this guy's very small and feminine. I was like, this is a little twink. But then also, I could not tell if it was like,
Sure, that character is played by a woman.
wait,
Yeah.
really?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep. It's a character effectively in drag. And yeah, she makes a great fucking looking twink. Like to be honest, that's my like hottest crush in the whole movie. I just wish that she was in it longer.
well, there was a line, and I don't know if this would have just been in the English dub, that was like, a man looks his best before dying, especially you. And I was like, wait, is this character actually gay? What's going on here?
I, I would say yes, definitely. Like that opens up like another level of camp here, and that's the other meaning of camp, like the gay camp. And
Mm.
like the Gang of Four is honestly three-quarters gay. Um, like you even have like the typecasts too. Like you have the two twink types. You got a bear. You could argue that like maybe one of them could be an otter. Like that's just me spitballing. But and then there's like Riki-Oh, which is like the straight gay.
One of them has like the like dyed hair streaks that were really popular, like front pieces of hair dyed
Yeah.
as like
Yeah.
a
Yeah, it's definitely I always am, well, I mean, the added layer that there was like this character basically in drag is really interesting. But like it is always interesting to me how, and maybe it's there's different cultural perceptions being in America, but like just having these like super strong muscular men being like, I'm gonna be a cool action star. Like anytime, like, okay, that's the focus of your movie and you're spending the time like with the camera following them. Like, not that I would say that any of the cinematography is like especially like voyeuristic or anything. Like, it doesn't feel fetishistic, but it is still like kind of funny to me that like an action movie trope of a big, cool, tough, muscular guy, and like that's who I'm gonna be spending my time with, is like, okay, feels a
Yeah,
little gay.
that's the other thing about this movie is like there's quite a bit of just dudes with their shirts off, looking vaguely menacing slash tough. Um, and most of those times they're pretty oiled up. Like I know it's supposed to be sweat, but like you're not fooling me.
No wonder everyone has been saying that you're a demon. You can even overcome my deadly strike. But even if you think you're safe right now, you will not be able to make it through the night.
You do have to remember this is a prison exploitation film. And the one thing that this does not actively address is the sexual assault aspect of being in prison.
Yeah.
There's a whole slew of like Hong Kong, Chinese, category 3 and otherwise, like women in prison films, even Japanese, where it's so hard to not get a moment um, that where that's not happening to
Mm.
a prisoner or someone who works at the prison. But in this, it's virtually non-existent. Like there's no indication of any sort of like sexual violence occurring to anyone.
There's
Um,
violence occurring,
there's violence,
but not
yes.
sexualized. Yeah.
Like the closest we get is like Riki-Oh punching a hole through a guy's butt, but like that's not
Yeah.
necessarily a stand-in for that kind of thing.
the characters in this movie are more invested in coming up with the craziest ways to kill someone.
Yeah. And even with like the flashback with his girlfriend being tied up to the bed, that whole setup, honestly, like it's very surprising that it doesn't even lead into sexual assault. And I wonder if that was a deliberate choice to like steer away from that to maybe bring focus back to Riki-Oh in some way,
Mm.
but also not tempt like the categorization board further. It could have been an executive decision, maybe a creative one, maybe it's part of the adaptation. I don't know. Is there a page of Riki-Oh's girlfriend like escaping the bed and just jumping off the building like she does in the movie? Or does that thing actually happen? But I think this movie would definitely be too much if it did decide to show sexual violence in any capacity, because what it does with actual violence, I don't think I want to see the version that like would have the sexual violence in it,
Yeah.
where it would be very hard to watch.
I mean, I feel like it would, on one hand, if this is a movie about like the corruption and also just how like awful the prison system is, like, okay, like, yeah, try to address this, but also this is not a movie that is interested in like reality or even like the assumptions of what, like, I think, like, maybe typical story beats of kind of like it's so, because everything is so exaggerated. I don't know. I do feel like I also, like, I do think I am of someone of the opinion that there are films that there are situations where showing like sexual violence is part of the story, and I think that um but this, I do agree that this is a film that wouldn't, I don't think it's the filmmaker's intention to have tell that kind of story, and also it wouldn't fit if they had tried.
Yeah, it would definitely, if it had been there, it would be something that um, you would immediately notice as something that does not need to be in it. Um, doesn't wouldn't add anything to it. It wouldn't create any more like different stakes for the characters, especially with just how it decides to go about the revenge plot anyway.
They've already like established the wardens of the prison are like cartoon villains. Like they like it's very clear that they're bad guys already. Like there's like, is it really a need to like establish sexual violence to show like how bad these people are? Like we were already seeing like the craziest kills.
Yeah. Yeah, the prison warden, or sorry, the assistant warden, he is introduced, we already talked about some of the aspects of his visual design. He is introduced eating like a really bloody steak, and then it kind of, cuts out to a wide, and his like whole table is filled with all this food, which is in
Hmm.
contrast to the fact that later in the film the warden is talking about how they can reduce the meal sizes even further for prisoners. Oh god, that's such another disgusting moment where that, like, oh, one of the prisoners is like, this isn't enough meat, and he like shoves the prisoner's arm into the meat grinder and is like, how about this? Is this enough
Yeah.
meat?
One other thing about the assistant warden, every single thing in his office is like this symbol of excess. Like there's like the steak, there's so many eggs on his table. I don't know what his thing is about eggs. Like the glass of water that he's drinking out of like has like one of his like his mint eye, I think, in it, like an
Yeah.
ice cube.
Yeah.
And there's some shelves in his office that are filled only with like porn tapes.
Yeah, I was like, I think that those are a bunch of porn VHS. Like,
Yeah, I don't know how much of that was like relatively visible when like this movie was first kind of like circulating around before people were able to see it on a broader sense. But I wonder if that was like a set design choice that was an in joke for something, or just like another thing to put in the background to like push the idea that like this
I
guy
mean,
is
it's very prominent.
yeah,
It's like very clearly there.
yeah, it's a little funny, especially since it doesn't ever like address it or come back to it. It's just like he just has hundreds of porn tapes in his office.
I also
And
love that they
yeah.
break his table and then like the next day he already has a new table.
It's like he can just order another one, but like the prisoners, they can only eat half of the salad.
I also think it's interesting that when it comes down to like the finale, all the prisoners are like kind of rallying behind Ricky, and they're like, "Oh, we need to kill the assistant warden. He's awful." And then the warden like has this gun, and they shove the assistant warden like in front of them to try to like see if, that'll protect them from shooting the warden shooting them. And he just shoots the assistant warden, and the assistant warden blows up, like, because it's another like comedic exaggerated kill, but it's also this kind of, an example that even, second in command is disposable to the system that the warden
Mhm.
represents.
And as he blows up, they add a prosthetic pig nose to his face, and that like expands in his face, and then he literally explodes. Or like, there's no
Yeah.
real reason for him to explode from getting shot like in the chest
I mean,
or
I think the warden explains that it's like a special gun for like shooting elephants that for
Yeah.
some reason has exploding.
I don't think that happens to elephants either.
They wanted to show people explode, which is
Yeah.
fun.
Hmm.
I think the only character that we haven't talked about who is basically like, well, there's other characters. There's a lot of, I mean, like we said, this is like a video game. There's all these different like just Ricky keeps meeting more and more people that have awful things happen to them, and he, fights the people who does the awful things. Like there's the godson of one of the gang of four, who's like his tongue was cut out. But what a character that I also found interesting, which felt so like this was like, oh, this is a definitely like an exact like intentionally exaggerated comedic performance, was the warden's son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like just the snottiest, spoiled, like brat of a kid that you could possibly show.
So very ambiguous age.
Yeah.
This is something that a lot of like Hong Kong and Chinese comedies will do. Like you have your like Buster Keaton types, Charlie Chaplin types that are like clearly mugging for the camera to like get this physical comedic performance out of.
Mm,
But usually those are like the protagonist or like a character that garners sympathy in some way, like across the film. But this is just fairly specifically someone designed from the bottom up to be hated the moment that you meet them. And it's done so perfectly that like it's even like that same performance style too. I saw someone compare this character to there's a silent film series with a character like a little boy whose name is Little Lord Fauntleroy, and that's exactly what he is. He's just a little fucking shit. Um,
yeah.
I do love the two like Halloween pins that he wears in the
Yeah.
movie,
Yeah.
like two jack-o'-lanterns, and like I don't know where that came from, but I like that it's just inexplicably there on his like preppy little outfit.
Well,
Um,
and then in the towards the end, where I guess he's getting ready to go to bed, he's like in green and white striped pajamas with like
yeah,
the little like cap. Like it's
yeah. Honestly, okay, so the costume design for this film is like all over the fucking place. But that's the aspect I think that comes at the film with like a higher sense of like comedic cartoonish imagery, um, other than like the sound effects or
mm,
uh, just the treatment of hyperviolence and then just kind of like not even acknowledging the seriousness of it. That's like a key component in just how this like surrealistic world looks and feels. That these are outfits that are like everyday for these people,
yeah.
and no one finds that like out of the ordinary or strange or weird or eccentric.
So, am I kind of hearing your kind of takeaway of the violence and the extreme nature of parts of this film? Do you interpret that the intended effect is like, yeah, this is the way the world is? Because I think I'm still definitely trying to kind of figure out if I have a specific takeaway for how like the prison system and the violence are, how those two go in hand, how to interpret that.
In terms of like the violence, honestly, the contrast between the other prisoners causing this type of violence towards each other, not even with like Ricky on the picture, isn't altogether different than how Riki-Oh incites violence. The only real difference is that he can just do it with his bare hands. And I think that's the part that surprises them versus like the warden, his team, like needing to have all of these like gadgets or devices or environmental systems to accelerate this type of violence and give them something shocking to like show to the other inmates as an example. And the other prisoners, like the Gang of Four has their own thing, but none of them really show that they can do anything close to what Riki-Oh can. And already about half of them rely on weapons to do that. And the same goes for like the lower inmates that like are trying to exert control over other inmates.
Yeah.
They're using like even more rudimentary environmental tools and weapons to get that across. So that's the shock there.
I love the like huge sword that they show like around the beginning of the film. It's like wide but really spiky. It's not quite a machete, but not quite a sword. It just looks
Mhm.
crazy and it shows up out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's like
I
a
think that's my
sawtooth.
favorite weapon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the very first scene I think we get is like there's that old man,
Yeah.
and his like he gets completely cut up by, it seems like it's like a, maybe is it like a modified mouse trap or like some sort of like, it's not even a knife, it's literally like a,
It's like a wood planer. Like he used that to make his little like
oh
train toy.
okay, I didn't pick up that that's what it was. Oh god, that is even more
Yeah,
disturbing that
it's
they
like
not
a
only
mandolin wood planer.
they break the toy and hurt him with the tool he used to make the toy.
Yeah, it's really fucked up. Um, and the first death that Riki-Oh mourns.
That's the lowest level, right? Like it's just another inmate who's like got a little bit of power over this old man. Like he's not a gang
Mhm.
leader, like he doesn't have any power. So it is, I guess it's right that like exerting violence over others is like built into the system from the very like bottom to the
Mhm.
top.
And then he's criticized later for causing his death.
Mm.
Um, and like his reaction is like incredulous. Like I thought this was gonna get me somewhere, but it doesn't. And I think at some point later he just gets like killed by his ultimate like leader of the four. And that actually happens at least another time or two, where someone is trying to use the power that they think that they have over another inmate. Um, the guy with a sword, actually,
Yeah.
who like insults one of the gang of four by like saying, like I'm just upholding the rules that we have, and then he gets his face like sliced into by this blade, and his boss essentially is just saying, insulting one of like the gang leaders is against the rules, and that's what gets him his like penance.
And then that like that is seen his, I think I can't remember what the name of that guy was, the original guy with the sword. Let me see if my notes. Andrew, at least in the American dub, he was Andrew. uh the guy who he ends up getting then like chained up on that giant wooden cross as like,
Yeah.
and that like Ricky and the other prisoners like see that as an injustice, even though technically he was also ready to enact violence on another prisoner. But I think like, I guess it seems like Ricky as this character, like he keeps advocating for every single person he meets, even if they're like Tarzan who was fighting him, or like this, the guy on the cross, like he's like all of the deaths are unfair. Like,
Yeah, largely avoidable too.
mm-hmm.
And with Andrew, like the scene that starts with him sitting at the cross, he like explains to Riki-Oh, like, I think you're really cool, but they told me to kill you, so I'm sorry. And he ends up just getting beat to death pretty much,
Yeah.
but not without like cutting Riki-Oh's like forearm open, and then him just doing like this like field triage of like
Oh
pulling his
god.
tendon out of his arm and just like tying it into a knot, which like fixes it somehow.
Yeah.
What other like crazy moments of violence haven't we brought up?
Oh,
Because it's like basically the entire movie.
yeah. I just looked over at my notes. When the two of the Gang of Four members kick a dog in half and then
Yeah.
shove the
Yeah,
organs down the like bamboo pipe to like try to like
suffocate him.
make sure Ricky doesn't have air when he's buried under the ground.
But he still, that was after he was playing the flute somehow, like through the air pipe.
Yeah.
Oh, that was another thing we haven't brought up. Like he just has a flute on him, and like the godson character is trying to learn how to like blow on a leaf to make it sound like a flute or a whistle, but he can't because like his tongue has been severed. And that kind of like leads into like the Poppy realization on Riki-Oh's part, which leads
Yeah.
him to just immediately burn it down.
Well, then they skin the godson alive when they're like, "Oh, you told him about the poppies? You're not gonna go kill him? Cool, we're gonna kill you." Like,
Yeah.
there's also another violent moment, which to me is like again this linking of the violence to like how the prison system is like exerting control over the prisoners. Is they issue a zero alarm, which means that if they aren't back in like if they aren't in their cell in 1 minute, then like
Hmm.
they get shot on sight and like these guns like pop out of the prison walls.
Yeah. And it's firing on like the prisoners that are tasked with like taking down Riki-Oh. So like there's no internal protections.
Yeah.
Like it's like a sobering reminder for them and the audience too that like even though they're working for someone, it doesn't really matter. They're still like on the chopping block too.
Well, I almost forgot. You're not afraid of bullets. Come here. Take my son away. If any prisoners try to get in your way, I have my permission to kill them.
Yes, sir.
Riki-Ho, let's see if you can deal with me.
You think you're real tough?
I'm a lot tougher than you think. The warden of any prison has to be the very best in Kung Fu.
At least like before we wrap it up, I do like want to point out like how very instant character I find Riki-Oh to be. Like his entire vibe is, to me, it's like very classic anime hero, like just very handsome man with like perfect hair, and he's also like very clearly invincible, and he's also like he's like very kind, but he's also like brooding all the time, and like there's that one scene where he's like screaming in the rain.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I ever explicitly wrote it down, but I definitely was thinking, the all the villains too are very instant character. You see them and immediately understand their whole deal, like the assistant warden and the warden and the warden's son and all of the Gang of Four. Like they're presented and you're like, "Yep, that's the villain." That's the mini boss.
Yeah.
Also, the glass eye of the assistant warden is like literally like Sith Lord colors. Those are Darth Maul colored eye.
Yeah, you don't get a prosthetic eye with like a red or an orange iris without knowing what that communicates. But Riki-Oh is very much like this. He's very much a Bruce Lee type. Where like if you've seen any Bruce Lee movie, like he is about as physically threatening as him. There's a short sequence in Fist of Fury, like the actual Fist of Fury, where he's threatening this like mob boss in his office. And I think either his shirt is off because of course it is, or he's wearing like the classic white wife beater, and then he just like makes a move towards him, doesn't strike him at all, but like he just holds his fist in front of him and then like squeezes it so hard that like you can hear the knuckles just pop and crack, and that's enough to like make him piss his pants. In that one moment is like what Riki-Oh is physically to like everyone that he has to punch a hole through in order to get that point across. But it's very much that archetype of martial arts character that has this like this immediate physical power over the other. And like the Bruce Lee type has already become its own kind of camp. I could see this being a Bruce Lee exploitation movie where you could have rewritten this to have one of like the actual Bruce Lee like lookalikes be in this role, and this could have been a movie made in like the late 70s or the early 80s, but the hyper violent aspect wouldn't necessarily be there. So
Yeah.
it probably would just feel like another one of those.
Yeah, I think ultimately to me, the most camp aspect of this movie is the fact that with all this ultra violence, with all of this exaggeration, and like we said, you know, these really like fake looking effects that are still really visceral, I am watching all of that, but I'm also thinking about like the injustices of the prison industrial complex. Like that to me is what I find most compelling, is that like to have this really like fun silly film that's also still like making me think and having an impact on like and I don't know, that's, I mean, those are my favorite kinds of camp films where it's like there is a political message that I take away from it.
Yeah, one of the things I was thinking about while watching the movie was how this is like if the Andor prison arc was insane.
Yeah. But even like I don't even think like, so Andor, like the Andor prison arc is very much like, you know, these people like they're, it's the sentences are being made up. They're really like, you know, it's really unjust, like they're just being used as workers
It's
and it's going
definitely
on
more
forever.
cerebral and collective. Meanwhile, Riki
Yeah.
is very
But
video game. You are fighting a bunch of guys.
But I also don't think at any point outside of obviously the character of Cassian Andor, who we know was like, we see his trial and he ends up in prison for a really like unjust reason. Like it's just like he wasn't even, you know, like he is innocent. They don't really have that like as part of a reoccurring theme, I think. And that is something that I did find really interesting about Riki-Oh, of like there was constantly being like this reminder of the everyone's humanity, like again, like you know, this, the fact that Riki-Oh like tries to help Tarzan, one of the, you know, the gang of four, who's this super like buff violent guy, and he sees like a photo that he has of like of his wife or family, and he's
I
like,
think it was his
he's a
mom.
person. Oh, his mom.
Yeah. Yeah, he cries out mommy before he gets crushed.
Oh, I don't think that. Oh God, I didn't pay attention to that. That's so sad. Like, but that's what I mean. Like the fact that they're like, oh, like these are people. These are like they have families waiting for them. Like, and the old man that we talked about, like they even say that he like should have gotten off. Like it was like a traffic accident that ended him up in jail. That was
Hmm.
like it
And
was
he was up for parole.
yeah.
The toy he made was for his son. This is from like the very beginning of the movie too. So like it's setting out with like these themes.
And like the accident was because he was like driving his wife to like because she was like going into labor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe that's also like to take this another step further, what is so interesting about the ending, the fact that Ricky like frees all of these prisoners in the end, and all of these people, you know, there's this reoccurring theme, like they have families to go back to, but Ricky has no one left because his girlfriend died. Like, so even though there was it is this like community that builds up around him, he walks away and he's alone and he's leaving that, and we don't, you know, it's like there's no one left for him on the outside.
Yeah. Well, he's very much like the wandering outsider with nothing to lose action trope.
Yeah.
Um, that like is the only one who can create this opportunity for the other people that have all these ties that like they can't afford to take a risk like this to escape prison, to like fight their way through this shoddy hierarchical system that's just based on a stock market.
Yeah.
um Other than the fact that he has like no one else to live for in the moments of the film's present. The real power from him comes from not subscribing to it. Also being able to survive like the torture and the fights
Yeah.
that he faces, which I don't think anyone else could, but on paper it's because of that he's able to, like, that's where his superpower comes from, is like he just doesn't care. And that's when that chi energy that like that you see him harnessing during like the training scene with like the very cool looking like drawn on film cell effect, like him sitting
Yeah.
in the graveyard. That comes up one other time, and that's when he punches the wall, which gets like an immediate like play, replay, replay, uh, that just becomes the end of the movie, and he just walks virtually towards the camera, and then it just freeze frames on him. And then he turns around to like the other prisoners in the yard and is like, "We can leave now," which is,
Yeah.
it's a little funny, like ridiculous way to put it, but yeah, ultimately that is what he does for them. He creates a method of escape that does not victimize them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was also thinking like, oh, and everyone cheered.
But it's everyone cheered in a way that is, I think,
It's warranted.
it's genuine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if a buff dude like broke me out of prison and I was only there on a traffic violation, I'd be really fucking happy. Like I can just leave. I'd have to walk, but like I'll take it. I'll take that.
You're all free now!
Oh, I don't think I ever asked. Where did you first watch Riki-Oh? How did you discover it?
I discovered it on the internet when I was about 12 or 13.
Oh.
I was a staunch user of the internet forum for Gary's Mod users. I don't know if any of you know what that means.
No.
I think I've heard of that, but I don't actually know what it means.
It's like a video game that is set within the engine that like the Half-Life games were made, but it was like a sandbox kind of
Oh.
thing where you could just create whatever. This was kind of like Minecraft, but before that was even like ever released. So they had like models from all the Valve licensed games, and it became so big and so popular that there was a web forum that was designed around it in terms of like people who play the game a lot, people who like might not, but they're also just kind of adjacently into that kind of culture, like video games and movies and comics and music. I just saw some GIFs and some short YouTube clips of this crazy movie where this guy punches another guy's fist and it just explodes into meat. And I was like partially traumatized for like a week or so having seen that. And like while I was like horrified, I had to know like where it came from. I needed to figure
Mm.
out what it was, and I just couldn't figure it out because I didn't know what to do in order to find it. So I just kind of like forgot about it for a while. And then I found out what it was by attending a friend's martial arts movie night when I was right out of college. I want to say like 20 or 21 years old. She was doing this series on Tuesday nights called Kung Fu's Days. And I hadn't actually seen it, but I tracked down this movie over like the better part of a decade. And I brought this DVD that I rented from Scarecrow and brought it to the party. No one had seen it, which is surprising given like this was like 2010, 2011. I think a lot of people had seen it at that point by then, but no one there, myself included, at least not like all the way through. I knew what to expect. I gave people like a little bit of a content warning, and then we just started the movie, and everyone just lost their minds.
Yeah.
It was probably the best like first experience I could have had, and hopefully for them too. And it was the only movie night I went to with them.
Wow.
I just like it just didn't happen after that.
You showed up, showed a crazy movie, and then that's it. Dip.
Yeah, it was a literal mic drop. I just like put the disc in the player and then the credits rolled and everyone was like just congratulating me. It was weird. And yeah, that was the first time I'd seen it. I can't remember what version it was. It was probably the English dub. And then, yeah, then like I hadn't seen it again until I programmed it for Grand Illusion, which was like another decade later, pretty much.
Yeah.
We did show both the English dub and the subtitle version, which was neat. Like I can't remember which one did better, but I think the dubbed one was like more attended, but each screening was just like completely full,
Yeah.
which I couldn't have asked for like better sales for that one. It's
Yeah.
great. I was gonna go into like some other kinds of films that this makes me think of in terms of just like how it uses violence, how it like addresses prisons. Like RoboCop is one that's not necessarily prison specific. The big one for me is the Meiko Kaji Female Prisoner number 701 series. Specifically the first and the second one. The amount of punishment doled out on the female prisoners are like outright barbaric and is like very much like a real world application of something like Riki-Oh. But this was back in the 70s where there was just a lot of exploitation films centered around women in incarcerated positions and then having like sexual situations forced upon them, whether it's like explicit or implied. And then like the other side of it, like the masculine part, the most evocative of like how violence is portrayed. I saw a lot of The Street Fighter in this, which is a Sonny Chiba film, and it's basically just Sonny Chiba as a character who just uses his fists to pretty much just like kill people. And like he doesn't like doing it, which is something that I'm sure like Riki-Oh also shares that outlook towards, but it's a lot more grounded. Like in the Street Fighter, it even has like a similar cut where Sonny Chiba punches a guy in the face, and then it cuts to an X-ray of his skull or something like that, showing like the fracture that happens in that moment. So that can't be an accident. And like another weird out there one would be Robotrix, which is another Category 3 Hong Kong film. It's kind of like a sexploitation version of RoboCop, but
Whoa.
with like
Oh, that sounds
um,
fun.
a little Red Shoe Diaries, perhaps. Um, It is a little difficult because right away it goes into sexual assault. Rape is part of the plot. It happens right away, and it becomes like the DNA of the film. So, with that in mind, it's a little bit more ridiculous as it goes because it's about some like a woman who gets killed after sexual assault, gets brought back as a robot, and then enacts revenge. But it has some ridiculous like fight scenes
Hmm.
that made me think of Riki-Oh. And I think it came out around the same year. So this is kind of like this was the market. And it's even just like addressing that kind of treatment of like martial arts and like super intense slash gory bloody action. Um, it is, I think, all the more like surprising and admirable that a movie like Riki-Oh has like zero depictions of sexual violence or assault. Punching a hole in a guy's butt is probably preferable, I think.
Well, yeah, I'm definitely gonna try to check out some of those. Are there any other references, any last things we want to bring up?
I just want to mention this quote from the movie that I think is really fun. And it's, as warden, I naturally must have the most powerful kung fu.
Yeah, that's before he transforms.
Hmm.
I just think that dialogue is so fun, and there's like a couple more examples throughout the film.
Yeah, I'm really curious. It's been interesting to hear how some of the lines that I wrote down, it sounds like they were exactly the same with the subtitles, but a couple of variations. Like I think the final line in the English dub is like "you're free" instead of "we're free" or like "we can go." I think it was specifically "you're free," which
Mm.
which is an interesting choice to change. I mean, the dub is really good in that they clearly a lot of work was put into making sure like the lines match the mouth movements. Like it's a really well done dub in that regard. So I don't fault like small, line changes to get the timing right. We've covered this movie, man. It's
It's covered in blood.
yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think we can like quite explain like how crazy the violence is. Like you have to see it for yourself.
Yeah. This is gonna be we're select our photos for Instagram carefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but watching this movie, I was like, I can't put any of this on Instagram.
Well, there's a couple of images. There's like the the Ricky like completely wrapped in like the giant chains. That's a very cartoony moment that isn't necessarily violent. Or there's also I mean the warden's the assistant warden's eye.
Hmm.
There's this is another film that of course we the film I'm thinking of that also has this is Elvira, which like bars get bent, but that's she bends them with her boobs. And this there's just like raw strength, like prying apart prison bars.
I think that moment in Elvira is actually just a direct reference to Riki-Oh, the story of Ricky.
Yeah.
She has that much power in both of her boobs, or actually each single boob, that I think if she had to, she would actually like explode another guy's fist.
Hell yeah, I believe in her. Well, Anya, is there anything you want to plug? Any links or projects you want to shout out that we can include in our episode description?
I only have one thing kind of like in the fire at the moment, and that's I am also a guest on another podcast. I was on Films at First Sight, talking about the first Baby Assassins movie. This is a movie and a franchise that I hold near and dear to my heart. I love them so much. Um, and by me plugging this, I'm also extending that recommendation to both of you. It is a martial arts movie, it's a martial arts series, but it does a lot of things quite differently. So I would recommend just check out the episode. I would say within the next couple weeks or so. It should be on Films at First Sight's episode list wherever you go to get those.
Once it's out, it'll be updated in our description.
Hopefully, I'll be talking more about Baby Assassins like with other podcasts. But I'm just trying to bring that to the masses right now.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this discussion. I always walk away from our episodes having an even deeper appreciation for the film, and yeah, getting to hear the context and the other observations is so cool. Well, I think that's our episode.
Yes. Thank you to our patrons:
Ike Everard, Dominic Overman, Joshua, Marcus Gorman, Arcadia Reeves, Jose Liano, and Pericles Kaspari.
This episode was edited by Saffron Hefta-Gaub.
Our theme music is by Harrison Lurie. I've been Saffron Hefta-Gaub. You can find me everywhere at Gaub Hefta.
I've been Fabiola Liano. You can find me on Instagram at Fabiola the Gremlin and on Twitter at Fabiola_Liano. The podcast, It's Giving Camp, on Instagram at It's Giving Camp Pod and on Twitter at Giving Camp Pod.
It really helps us out if you're able to give us a rating or review.
Be sure to support our Patreon.